Hey folks, it's Frithgar here, how you doing? I'm just bringing a little bit of water round for the cows as they're starting to run low on water. They're running very low on food. However, I'm kind of holding off putting very much in for them at all because I'd like this silage clamp here. It's at 82% at the moment. You can see we've got speed at 120 speed at the moment. This is at 82%, so it's probably going to be in the morning that we can actually do something with that one. Base food is down 8% with the cows. I'm hoping that what we can do is I can put just a couple of bales of hay in for them. That will last them the night, and then we can start putting in proper mixed rations for them in the morning, and that will bring them back up to 100%. That's not turning properly, and I'm not quite sure why. Bring it round this way and come up like that. So yeah, I asked you yesterday if you wanted me to find the gold nuggets on camera or find them off camera, and a couple of people have actually said they'd like to see me try to find at least some of the ones in the maze on camera, but generally, ooh, it does help if I have the PTO attached. Generally, most people want me to find them off camera, so what I might do is just do the ones in the maze and get the others off camera, or just sort of dash around a little bit here and there to try to find some of them. But yeah, so that brings me on to my question. We're going to be getting the gold nuggets, and we're going to be getting €1 million from those gold nuggets. I've had all kinds of backstories for those gold nuggets, and I will select the correct backstory that I think best fits what we're going to be doing, and I will let you know at the beginning of next week. Now, for the actual question, what I'm asking is, do you want me to stick with €1 million for the reward for finding all the gold nuggets, or would you like me to increase the amount that we get? Now, should I put 3 bales in or just 2? I think actually we'll just do 2. If I can flick that top one off, there we go. Yeah, would you like me to stick with getting the €1 million, or would you like me to in fact use the story that we're going with, that all of these different stories have been suggested? I will pick one, and we use that story to explain getting €10 million rather than €1 million. Now, I'm aware from the comments that some people really hate this idea of €10 million being added to the game. It feels too much like cheating, it's too unrealistic, and it's kind of like the Texas series, which some of you really don't like because of just how unrealistic it is. The Texas series is not meant to be about realism and about farming and everything else. That series is about seeing what the game can do, seeing what we're capable of doing in the game. It's not about being realistic in any way. It's not true to life. It's not intended to be. It's just intended to be fun, messing around, and sort of seeing what we can do. And this series is supposed to be realistic. Now, I realise that adding €10 million is not realistic, but I don't feel that in any way that brings us close to what we're doing in Texas, because in Texas we're doing things like running small balers with 100,000 litre bales popping out the back on a 28-metre pickup. We're not doing that here. That's you know, we're sticking to realism. If we were to get 10 million, we would be buying a whole load of new land, and let me just show you here. Whether we get the 1 million from the nuggets or we get 10 million, we're going to buy more land. If we get the 10 million, we'll get a lot more land. If we get 1 million, we'll get some land, and we will upgrade our machinery. And we will make the fields bigger, we will join them together. And what we're essentially going to be doing for the second year of this series is we're going to be running a large-scale farm rather than a small-scale farm. Everything is going to be big. We're going to be doing big machinery, bigger fields, and so we're going to be running a larger estate. Now, that is quite realistic. There are plenty of large estates in the world, plenty of big-scale machinery and things like that. Let me just go back up here, and we will skip the night a minute. So doing that is realistic, and I appreciate that you don't like the fact that we're going from small scale to big scale all in one go. We're not taking the time to build up the money. I can appreciate that. However, if we were to take the time to build up the money, this would be one of the dullest series I've ever produced. And I really don't want that. I'd like this to be an interesting, entertaining series. I'd like you to enjoy watching it. I don't want you to be bored to tears at just the thought of having to come back and watch the again, struggle to make a little bit more money to increase things again. So, we're going to skip out all of that bit. We're going to skip all of the boring stuff. and we're going to go straight to the big time. Now, we've done the small time. That's already been done. So we're going straight to the big time, but do we go to the big time with €1 million, or do we go to the very big time with €10 million? So that is the question. Do you want me to get €10 million as a reward from finding all of the gold nuggets, or do we just stick with the standard 1 million and we upgrade our machinery and buy new stuff, whatever we can with the 1 million, or we go all out with the 10? So yeah, some of you are really going to hate the 10. Some of you are going to really like the idea of the 10. But as always, it's your vote, it's your game. Head into the comment section down below, let us know which one you want and why, and of course don't forget to actually cast your vote in the top right hand corner. And really get into the comment section and actually have your say on this. Don't be in... it's very easy to be insulting from the anonymity of a keyboard. I can appreciate that. It's great fun. If that's the way that you want to do things, by all means, be as insulting as you want. I'd prefer it if you could come up with reasons as to why we shouldn't do it, because at the moment the vote is very strongly in favour of 10 million rather than 1 million. So if you don't want it to be 1 million, if you don't want it to be 10 million, if you want us to stick with 1 million, give some good reasons, give us some good suggestions, give us some why should we not go for this 10 million. Most people want the 10 million. It's around about 75% of people want me to go 10 million and go for big scale farming right here in the same place, and sort of, so we're both ends of the spectrum for farming here in Gorale. So we do, you'll see all of it here on this map. Why don't you want us to do that? What good reason can you give? And this is my challenge to anybody that doesn't want the 10 million, because, like I've said, it's so strongly in favour of 10 million at the moment. I would be gobsmacked if it doesn't actually do 10 million. Now, sometimes I've been genuinely surprised at the way the votes have gone. Sometimes they've changed quite drastically over the course of the 3 days that the votes, or the week that the votes go on for. Is today going to be one of those days? Is today going to be, is this week going to be one of those weeks where it really changes? Get into that comment section. Tell us what you think we should be doing here on this map. Why shouldn't we have 10 million euros here on this map? What is it that you think is going to make this series unique and interesting and really captivate the audience and really give people everything that they want from a series without that 10 million? What do you think that we can do with the series in order to make it really interesting? And that's the challenge that I'm giving you, because I've been told that we shouldn't be doing 10 million because it's really unrealistic, and I can appreciate that. I really can. And if I was playing this on my own, if it was just my ordinary playthrough, I wouldn't be adding 10 million to the map. I would just work my way through. But I can sit here for 10 hours and play the game, and nobody else is going to watch, and nobody else is going to get horrifically bored. And that's the difference. That is the big difference between ordinary playthrough and playing it for the entertainment of not only myself, but for everybody else involved as well. So what could we do to make this entertaining in such a way as to sort of be more entertaining than adding in that 10 million? So there's a big challenge for you there, because it is going the way of the 10 million at the moment. So that's the challenge that has now been laid down to anybody that wants to sort of take up the mantle. Do you think you can do it? Do you think you can come up with a good enough reason to persuade everybody, the thousands of people that watch these videos, that we should not be going for this $10 million? 10 million euros, I should say. As for the backstories, there are some amazing backstories. I did forget some of the backstories, and I apologise for that, but I'm going to go through, and what I'm going to do is I will pick out the best one of all. And believe me, it is not easy. It's really actually quite difficult to pick out a favourite from all of these different stories that we've been getting that are coming through, and really difficult. I'm surprised at just how difficult I'm finding it to pick one at the moment, but I will pick one, and it's got to be one that is believable. And I like the idea of having one that ties in with the whole story for moving to South America. So I'm going to pick one that we can tie into the story of moving to South America, because I love that idea. I love the idea of it all being connected together to make one big story. I mean, I try to do that with the Dowland Farm series anyway, but I've been talking for ages and I haven't really accomplished much. We've put a little bit of food in there. 2% left to go on the... have I got a grab or anything here? You know, I don't remember. I thought I actually had a grab here somewhere. Did I get a... did I get a muck grab? Actually, yeah, I did, didn't I? I got it for the tractor. It's right there. Can this one... Does this one just go for the tractor, or can this one go on to the front loader, to the telehandler? Let's see. I think this one might just be on the tractor, and if it is, I'm going to return it, and I'm going to get one for this telehandler, because the telehandler is bigger, and it generally works better. So let's just back up a little bit. I've got a feeling this is a tractor-only one. You press Q on there, and then you jump in. No, it's tractor only. So that one's on lease anyway, so we'll return that one. I'm going to go over to the dealership, and I'm going to get a... yes, I'll get a fork like that. I'll get one of those forks, but I'll get one for the telehandler, and then I will meet you back here. There's currently a great demand for wheat at the mill, but there's only 648. Well, we didn't grow much wheat. It was mostly barley that we grew. It's the winter that we want to sell these to. And we're not going to worry about those at the moment because we don't have very much. So we're going to be waiting for the winter for that. And fermenting silage is at 98% at the moment. We just need a 99, so it's almost ready, and then we can open up the clamp. We'll open up from that end. This clamp is, like a couple of you said in the comment section, this clamp really is quite appalling, isn't it? The way that it was rolled down with that bulldozer was kind of, yeah, it wasn't the best method of squashing it all down by the look of it in the end. But, I mean, it did the job. It did do the job, so we can't complain too loudly. And, go on, just 1% more. That's all we need. But yeah, the whole story thing, there we go, and a slow time back down to 1 again, and we can open this one up, and press R, there we go. Our first silage! At last. Right, let's get this in, and we can start feeding these cows. We can start giving them proper mixed rations at long last. It's been a while coming, and close that one up, there we go. Yeah, I would like to have a decent story so that we can, it's something that's got to be reasonably believable, explain why we get all the money that we're going to get, whether it's 1 million or 10 million, and we'll also tie it in with moving to South America. So we will also move down to South America, and we'll be farming sugarcane and stuff down there, and it's going to be awesome. It's going to be great fun, but it's got to be a story that is believable. It's got to be a realistic story. So that's kind of what I try to do with Dowland Farm. Is I like to make sure that I have a believable story going on whilst I'm doing the time lapse and sort of explain everything that's going on. Like for example, a couple of weeks ago. Some of you may or may not have noticed there was a point where I drove into the wall with the tractor. Certainly didn't mean to drive into the wall with the tractor. I was coming around the road, I was just going into the village, and I turned off and ended up going right into the wall. Reason being is because my computer did... one of the programs on my computer, I normally got everything sort of overridden, so it can't do automatic updates or alert me for give me any alerts whatsoever, because otherwise it cuts into the recordings at times and it's inconvenient. It was a new program and I'd forgotten to do that, so I had this thing come up and it took control, and so basically it removed control from the game temporarily, and so the tractor drove straight into the wall, which was a little bit inconvenient. So I explained it in a story. I didn't just kind of gloss over it. I explained it in a story. I stopped, I got out, we looked around, and I said, oh, wasp in the cab, you know, because I've done that before. I've actually had a wasp come into my cab. Sort of, you panic a little bit, and obviously I was quite a bit younger. These days I feel that I'm a little more able to cope with a wasp coming into the cab, but still, it can be concerning. And yeah, so I did kind of, you know, the tractor drove off the road a little bit, and I've done that, so that's how I explained it, and it's a believable story. And so that's what we want with this. We want a believable story that is actually going to work. Right now we're going to put in some mixed feed for these cows. They got power food, base food, that'll be everything. They should also have a little bit of grass left over as well. Let's just quickly check those. And then we can go on with the second job of the day. So yeah, we've got a bit of grass, we've got a little bit of power food here. We need a bigger mixer. Quite frankly, we need a bigger mixer than we've got right here, because this one here is great and all, but we're going to have to do a lot of loads in order to fill this one up. So, I'm thinking that we would actually need to go for the big one. And you know the one that I mean. You know the one that I mean. I always end up with this one. I've got it on... it's that one there. I've got this one on Dowland Farm. Some of you have said that it is a bit too big for Dowland. And yeah, I kind of agree. But I have seen monsters like this being used in around sheds like that before now. So yes, it's difficult, but it is still realistic. I have actually seen it in real life. And I base a lot of what I do in the game on my own personal experience in real life. So this one here is a monster of a machine. But I'm thinking of it getting to the point where we could actually justify using that one. And maybe if we just leased it to start with, it's 14,000. But the per day operating cost is only 1,000 euros. So it's quite cheap actually to get and to run if we were to just lease it. So that one, I'm seriously considering getting that and adding it into the map, regardless of whether it's 10 million or 1 million that we get, because it's big enough that we could use it in here. I think it would work quite well. Right, our next task of the day is we're just going to unhitch this one and we're going to leave it right here. I'm going to get this one up to the dealership. If we've got a front weight on, yes we do, ideal. So we're going to race up to the dealership and we're going to pick up the next machine that we're going to use, and we're going to do a little bit of muck spreading and then slurry spreading. If I asked you, and I said to you yesterday, I'm not sure if I asked you about a muck spreader, and if I did, I apologise because I've selected one that I want to use. It's a small-scale muck spreader. It's one that I have used more than any other type of muck spreader. It's a rotor spreader, and it throws it out the side. I've used one of these an awful lot in my time. A huge amount of time I've spent muck spreading one of these, and it's muck spreading with the big muck spreaders that just kick it out the back with the big beaters, like the sort of standard ones that are used in the game. I don't particularly like those. Let me get to the dealership and get the thing so that we can do some work while I talk. I am supposed to have my lights on while I'm driving along the roads in Poland, so I've done them on now. But yes, these types of spreaders, I've used these a lot. The ones with the big beaters on the back, I don't particularly like those. They have a habit of throwing stones through the back window of the tractor. And it's not something that I find particularly enjoyable. At least the types that I've used would do that. Now, there are other types of spreaders that do throw the stuff out the side rather than out the back. They're not as common, but they are used especially for smaller dairy farmers that don't have separate manure and slurry. They kind of have the whole lot in together in a slurry lagoon. That's much more common. Certainly, well, in my part of the world, it's certainly much more common, but you see these all over the place, and I quite like using these. Now, they're not very good. They don't do an even spread just with the machine itself. It is all down to the operator. You've got to work quite hard to get this to spread evenly across the ground, because if you take a look, we've opened this one up. It's got chains there. Now, if you fill this one up with muck, those chains are just going to spin round, wrapped around the inside of that, because the muck's over the top. Nothing comes out. You get a little bit coming out the front from that bar there, and that's what that bar is for. It's to start things off. And so you go really, really slowly just to get a bit of coverage on the ground as that one comes out, and then the first chain is freed, and you get a little bit extra, and it starts to spread a little bit more out. And then it will quickly move back, and you got to watch it like a hawk as it comes out here, because the amount that's coming out on the ground is increasing rapidly. So you've got to start accelerating. You start getting yourself moving forward much faster in order to keep, because you want to try to keep the coat of manure, of muck, whatever you want to call it, on the ground. You've got to keep it at sort of an even coverage, and so they quickly then all become uncovered, especially as you got to, some of them only have a bar on one end, and some of them have a bar on both ends. So if you've got the bar on both ends, it quickly uncovers, and then you have all chains working and throwing stuff out. And then you've got to be going quite quickly, because there's a lot of material suddenly flying out of this spreader, and you've really got to be going across the ground fairly fast in order to keep that same even coverage. And then the chains just kind of get further and further out from the bar until they're all the way out to the edge, and you've emptied out the spreader. Now, a new spreader will leave a line of manure inside this thing that it doesn't quite reach with the chains. But as it gets older, the chains stretch, and they'll get right to the edge, and they'll get it all out. And then when they get stretched even more, and it gets a little bit older still, you know when you're getting almost empty, because you can hear the chains clacking as they bash against the inside of this thing. those chains clacking, that's a sign that your machine needs new chains, and then you have to go through and you replace all the chains on the bar there and start all over again. Right, so we're going to go into this one. The other thing that you've got to do is, depending on if you're a clean and tidy farmer, you should not get very much of it. I've gone to work on places where they're not so picky, they're not so clean and tidy, and you can always tell how clean a farmer works and how tidy he is, not just by looking around the farm. You go to his old rotor spreader, you climb up and you take a look. If this thing is absolutely covered with string all the way down through, just loads and loads of string, he's a very untidy farmer, because he's not particular about picking up the string when he does the bedding down and feeding in that, and then the string goes into the manure and then it ends up wrapping itself around the bar on here. Now, older farmers, they could get away with that years ago, because the string used to be like a Hessian twine type of string. You didn't used to get string that didn't rot. The Hessian sort of string would rot down straight away, so they would just break the bales open and they could leave the string in the pens. It did not matter. It made no difference whatsoever. These days, however, it does. You notice it. Right, we've got to be really careful. This is a big loader to be loading this spreader. I actually thought the spreader was bigger than this, but never mind. So we just bring this one over here, and we need to line it up a little bit. Right, if we back up a little bit. It's difficult to judge distances in this game. It really is. So we pick that one up like that, and we can start loading it there. Perfect. And if we can get that one to load up there, I think this is going to be more than half the spreader with just one. Yes, it is. It's more than half the spreader already. So we're going to get one more grab, and then we can run this one out to the field and we can have a go. And then obviously next year, when we come to do a little bit more muck spreading, if we've got time, we may not have time to do muck spreading again on this map, because like I've said before, we're on a time scale now. It's entirely dependent on our move to South America, and we'll be moving to South America as soon as the new map is ready. As soon as we can, that's when we move to South America. So let's just tip that down there a little bit, and out it goes. There we go. So that's 100%. That is actually not full. Now, I know that the animation on here has got it. You're kind of limited on what you can do with the animation with this game. However, it does bug me and it irritates me that is not full. Look. Okay, I'm going to stop and I'm going to take the time to just come over here, because look, that's not full. You can see the bar. Full on here is filled right up to the top, and then you close that lid down. It's actually pushing down on top of the manure. It's sort of almost vertical here. You fill this thing right up to the very brim. You don't have half a load like this. Goodness me, no. I used to fill these things up by hand, for goodness sake. You'd park this one up alongside one of the pens that needed to be cleaned out. You would take a prong, a pitchfork, whatever you want to call it, you know, the fork that a farmer uses, a muck fork, and you would use that fork to fork the stuff out of the pen and into the spreader. And I would load these things by hand, and then I would take them off out into the field and I would start spreading. So we don't want to be going this way. We need to start off by going this way. Now, what you would do is you work this in stripes. You don't start right out on the edge. You would come up here and sort of work towards the middle of the field. So we start here, and all we need to do is just get going. So I'll just start traveling, and I'll press B. Now, our speed is not going to be changed on this one. It's just going to stay about the same. So you try to get a straight line coming up across the field, and you can see there that it is doing a little line up across the middle. And we get up to the other end, and then we switch it off. And you sort of do it about there, something like that. So that then... And you come back round this way, and you work down here to sort of meet it in the middle. Now, what would actually happen is you would get some good coverage like this, but you would also have a load of smaller bits being flicked out this side, and if you work tidy, when you go back down the other way, you actually end up covering both lots. So you do it down this way as well. It meets in the middle, and you sort of cover it over, and then it looks really neat and tidy straight up across the field. And we go round in a circle like this for a little while, depending on how big a field that we're doing. And we might take several passes out and round to actually do this and to cover it. So we come out here and try to get it lined up so that we're getting roughly a full spreader width. Come up through the field, up like that. This is actually really great fun. I really like this one. You don't often see these. They don't seem to release them with the base game. We did eventually. There was like one of these available in FS15, and I managed to use it right at the end. So I'm really pleased that we do have one of these available to use. My timer has just gone off. I intended to do a little bit more of this. So we'll do a little bit more muck spreading in tomorrow's episode, and then we're going to go and find a slurry tanker, and we're going to do some slurry spreading as well. I'm not quite sure what slurry spreader we're going to use yet. See, careful. Let me just turn that one off. I worked on farms where you'd use these for doing slurry spreading. I've done slurry spreading with these quite a lot. It's a bit different when you're using liquid. You kind of have a machine to load this one up, and you just sort of spoon it out of the lagoon and into the muck spreader, and then obviously it runs level, kind of how this one was filled up. If you're running muck in it, you would fill it right up as I described. If you're running slurry, obviously it's going to be lower down. You're not going to be able to fill it up like I described. It's just not going to be physically possible. Now we come round that one like that, and some people would turn the spreader off as they go past a pole like that. Some people just leave it running. I would generally leave it running unless it was really close to the road. If it was really close to the road and sort of make an absolute eyesore, then maybe I would switch the machine off, because you know, you don't really want people staring at that all the time. And we're done. We're empty, and even the animation for the chains, that was brilliant. It stopped. I mean, now the chains are stuck up in the air, which is not very good. But yeah, there was an animation for the swinging chains on that. Really, really well made machine. It's fantastic. I really do like this little spreader. This is actually the first time I've used it, so it is sort of new to me, but I'm really, really impressed. The only issue I've got is that I think it could be just a little bit bigger. Just a little bit longer is all you want. Generally, the barrel wouldn't get that much bigger. I mean, I have seen some with wider barrels and longer chains. The problem with those is that they do tend to use the chains up a lot faster. You do the wider barrel varieties with the long chains, it tends to stretch because there's extra weight on those chains. They do tend to stretch a lot faster, which means that you end up having to change the chains on a more regular basis. So yeah, the bigger ones, you do need to renew those chains on a regular basis, and the smaller ones, I've seen some quite small spreaders that I reckon that the chains are still the original ones that are in there, and this thing's been used for nearly 30 years. I mean, yes, it is sort of beating holes in the side of the spreader by this point because the chains have gotten so long, but still, they are still going. And that's kind of thing. Some people will bother to replace the chains, and some people won't. And if you listen when, if you ever hear somebody using one of these out in the field, and as they're sort of traveling around the field, just listen really carefully, and if you hear it making a loud clacking noise as it's finished, it's time they change their chains. If that clacking noise is like particularly pronounced and loud, they probably just haven't bothered to change the chains, and it's actually been something that's needed to have been done for quite some time now, like as in several years. It's probably needed doing. I've known people leave them. It sort of depends, because I mean, muck spreaders don't get a lot of love from a farmer. It's got to be said. Most muck spreaders are something that is like parked up outside and ignored. They generally don't have a lot of love. So it's not something that a farmer feels the need. A lot of farmers, I should say, feel the need to look after particularly well, and which seems odd to me because it's a machine that is used frequently. I know farmers that will be using their muck spreader on at least a weekly basis, from the end of summer right through until mid-spring. And some farmers will even use it right through the summer if they're spreading on ground that doesn't get mown or harvested or anything like that. But not a huge amount. So yeah, it is a machine that is used year-round, and yet it's probably one of the most mistreated machines there is on a farm. Anyway, all that aside, we're going to do a little bit more of this tomorrow. I think maybe we'll finish out this field or something. I'm not quite sure yet. Then we're going to do a little bit of slurry spreading before we start getting ready for winter. Our big thing that we're going to be wanting to get ready for winter is obviously fields. So we'll do slurry spreading in that tomorrow. Then we can find out just how much land we're able to buy and what our sort of plans are. And we're going to start getting a load of land and joining some fields together. And I'd also like to hear your opinions ready for next week on whether or not you think I should be getting the great big pecan feed mixer in order to feed our cows a little bit faster, because I'm finding I'm doing a lot of that feeding off camera now anyway, so I don't think that it would be out of place. I gotta be honest. I don't think it would be out of place if we're upgrading everything as well and everything's going to be bigger. Even with just whether it's €1 million or 10 million euros, either way, I still think it's a realistic thing to have that pecan mixer with the number of cows that we've now got. We've got 160 cows. That's a lot of animals here. But anyway, the question for this week is, when we've gotten our nuggets, when we get our gold nuggets, we're going to go out and we're going to find the gold nuggets, and then we're going to have a story that is going to explain how we get the money. Do you want me to have €1 million, or do you want me to have 10 million euros? So the standard game reward for finding all the nuggets is obviously €1 million. But if you'd like me to go for 10 million, now is the chance to say so. Get into the comment section down below, let us know what you want and why, and of course don't forget to cast your vote up in the top right hand corner, and never forget, it's your vote, it's your game. So if you want to be able to change what people are voting at the moment, if you want a chance to change their minds, get into that comment section, give us some good reasons as to why they should vote differently to what they're currently voting at the moment. Right. That really is all I got time for, so I will just finish up this one here. If you enjoyed this episode, then please head down below and give us a like, and if you really enjoyed it, then please tell your friends all about me. Get them to come and watch as well. That would be awesome. But until next time, thank you very much for watching. This is Frithgar. Goodbye, and see you later.